Hello, everybody. Justin Stivers here. Thank you guys for tuning in, listening, watching another episode of the Stivers Show. Very excited about my guest today, Mario Artecona, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Miami. Mario, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity to join you here today.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, so glad we could get you on the show. And I always like to start is just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you all do, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay, well, my name is Mario Artecona. I'm 56. I've been in Miami since 1986, where I moved after graduating from GW, George Washington University. In my 30 years here in Miami, 30 some, I spent 10 years working for county government at the Board of County Commissioners. Then I went to work for the Cadena Group, a real estate development firm. Uh, and for the last 10 years, I've been the CEO here at Habitat for Humanity of Greater Miami. Um, I work more, I make less, and I have never been happier. I really love what I do. It's just a really fantastic program because we are helping families that do everything right. They have jobs, they are not overburdened with debt, but they have limited income possibilities, and so there's no one that's servicing the target audience that we service in order for them to have an opportunity to purchase a home. So it's really, really great. And I say purchase because one of the misconceptions about Habitat is that we build and give away homes, and nothing could be further from the truth. The Habitat process is extremely complicated, very time consuming. You have to, show your income and verify it, and we have to speak to your current landlord and your employer, and you must be in the same line of work for a couple of years. Your debt ratio has to be low. If all of those things check off, then you begin a process called sweat equity, which means you have to dedicate a minimum of 250 hours of volunteering, some on your own home, but mostly on the homes of other Habitat families. And then at the end of this very complicated process, which can take well over a year, you purchase this home. We will sell you the home at cost, and we will finance it for you at a 0% interest mortgage. So really, that's where the big carrot is for Habitat homeowners is that 0% interest. The difference between 0% and a 4% loan, which a low-income family will never even get, is dramatic. It makes all the difference. So with every payment that you make at Habitat, it's like putting money in the bank because you're not paying interest. It's all principal. So it's a model that works here in Miami-Dade alone. We've done more than we're getting close to 1,400 homes that we've done, and Habitat is in every community in the United States and in 65 countries around the world. So it's a model that's repeatable, and it's a model that works.
Wow, I didn't really know the process too much. I didn't realize it was that you were looking at all of those kind of factors. So does that weed out a lot of people who want to apply?
Well, it weeds them out. When we have applicants that don't make the cut, it's never no. It's always not now. So one of the things that we do with families that don't qualify is say, look, if you bring this $3,000 debt down to 1,400, then your ratios are going to work. Or you need to make a little more money, or put someone else on the mortgage that's going to live in the house. We try to work so they can meet the parameters. Sometimes the applicants feel that we're a little too strict with our rules, but it serves no one for us to put you in a situation where you're going to fail. You're going to lose your home. We're going to, have to go through a very uncomfortable process of putting somebody else in there. And so it's done because it works. We're not trying to trip anybody up. We're just, these are minimum standards that have to be met. And if they're not, you're welcome to try again. And like I said, we never just say no, we say not now.
Hmm. How many? What's kind of the applicant? Uh, how many people apply? I guess per year or per.
So it's a good question. So we build between 30 and 40 houses a year. And what we do is, we look at what inventory of land we have for the year and where we're going to build. And then we release those addresses on our website. And then we start taking applications specific to an address. So if you're applying for a house, let's say, you want 12254 North Southwest, whatever, you apply for that house. We try not to take more than 2 or 3 applications per property because a waiting list, doesn't really help anybody. When you get accepted to Habitat, those numbers that you have to stay for a whole year. So it's very tough on a family. If you have to buy a car, you maybe have to wait because your numbers are going to get thrown. So we don't want to keep people that aren't accepted in the pipeline because you're kind of holding them hostage to not be able to have any major expenditure. So the long answer to your question is we try to get, if we have 30 to 40 homes, no more than 3 times that number in terms of applications. It's very, for every 3 applicants, maybe 1 will qualify. And it's usually, when you're dealing with low income families, it's usually debt that does them in. They owe too much on credit cards or on all sorts of loans. And again, if your numbers don't add up and if it looks like you're not going to be able to make a mortgage payment, it serves no one to accept you into the program at this time.
The zero interest is awesome. I know one of the major hurdles for a lot of people is the down payment as well. Is that do you guys have no down payment or a reduced down payment or?
So we have a very, very reduced down payment. And when you start in the Habitat process, and like I said, from the time that you're accepted, you signed your letter of intent, you have probably about a year to do your sweat equity. During that time, we asked folks to start making marginal payments, $200 a month, and that will go towards all the closing costs and stuff. We also underwrite a lot of closing costs. So it's not like you're going to have to cough up a check at closing for $2,500. You've already racked it up in an escrow account. So the impact is much less. And we can also start getting a sense, if you're not paying your $200 escrow payment, you're probably not going to be able to make a payment for your mortgage. So it tells us a lot. And obviously that money is refunded if somebody leaves the program or something happens that they have to be deselected. So, it's a very manageable down payment, and you can sort of lay away for it for lack of a better term.
I love the business model. I think and I love that I didn't know that you had to put in sweat equity into it. I love that requirement of it.
Well, sweat equity, in my humble opinion, is really the catalyst that makes everything work. Number one, like I said, some of the hours are working on your own home, but the majority are working on the homes of your neighbors.
That's awesome.
And so when you finally move in, you have a shared experience with your neighbors. You've gone through the same process. You've worked on each other's homes. You get to know their kids. So it's a built-in community / crime watch / nanny service, because one of the beautiful things in Habitat is that the families that work together for a year, they become really good friends. Not all of them, obviously. There's always personalities. But for the most part, there's a lot that they can relate to. Our typical family is, family of 3 or 4. Mom works, a lot of single moms. Like, mom is the lady at the lab who draws your blood, making $34,000 a year. It's a struggle. The cafeteria lady at the school, the parking attendant at Miami International Airport. It's the people who keep our economy going, but they do so, under the radar, grossly underpaid. Just because you don't make enough money doesn't mean you shouldn't have at least a chance to reach the so-called American dream of owning a home, which unfortunately is becoming less and less of the American dream. Home ownership is becoming so inaccessible to so many. And so, every time we put a family in, uh, it's an achievement they never thought they could achieve. And it's just so very, very rewarding. And we see the benefits, the kids of families who have a home, whether Habitat, they do better in school. There's no shelter insecurity. There's a great pride. But anyway, the original question was about sweat equity. And I also think it's a really important thing that, look, we live in a town that we lead the nation in terms of scams, and we lead the nation in Medicare fraud and tax fraud and mortgage fraud and stuff. Uh, when you have to put in 250 hours of sweat equity, uh, that means that you've sacrificed every Saturday for a year. You work a couple hours before you go to work. That's going to weed out anybody who's trying to game the system.
It's not a handout. You
It is not a
put in.
handout at all. In fact, as cliche as it sounds, we always say it's a hand up, not a handout. We're just giving you that little push so you can get out of, poverty and into lower middle class, if you will, if you want to put a tag on it. But it's just that little help. And it just makes a huge, huge difference, because it truly is affordable housing. That term gets thrown around here so much. And I can't see a family making, $38,000 combined income, how $1,600 a month in rent is considered affordable. There's
No,
nothing
Miami's tough. Miami's definitely tough.
On average, our homes, the payment is somewhere between $750 and $850. That's inclusive of taxes and insurance, and that's for a brand new home you helped build. 3-bedroom home.
Wow.
Over 30 years, and that is affordable.
That's definitely affordable.
The payments should never exceed 30% of your current income. That's how we set it up.
When was Habitat for Humanity founded?
Well, Habitat was founded in the 70s by a gentleman named Millard Fuller, not Jimmy Carter, as people think. And Mr. Fuller was a very religious man, but it was growing disillusioned in that there was a lot of talk on church on Sunday, but there was no action. So he said, why don't we put our money where our mouth is? And he created this model. And it started with one house, and that turned into 2, which turned into 4 and 8. There's more than 800,000 homes worldwide that,
wow,
with that simple idea, got created. The Habitat Miami affiliate, and it works that each community has their own affiliate. The parent company is called Habitat International out of Atlanta. We are in our 34th year. So, we've been here a little bit, and we have built all over town, and hope to continue doing so as long as we can find land to do it in.
Yeah, we'll chat on that in a second. And I was going to ask, is it a completely faith-based organization as well?
The organization was, it was founded on Christian principles, but there is no discussion of religion. There is no requirement for any particular faith. We have, atheist homeowners. We have Muslim homeowners. We don't look at your faith as a requirement, but it was founded under Christian principles. But we do not, proselytize or
sure,
trying to convert anybody. That's just the basis and the nature of the organization. And it's interesting because, to some, that aspect of it is a turnoff. And,
to people wanting to apply, or to people wanting to get involved?
No, for like a prospective donor, for example. There's 25 nonprofits to pick from. Sometimes they'll eliminate you because you're faith-based, like that was a bad thing. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but just because something was founded under a certain set of values, shouldn't really disqualify. But
sure,
that's the nature of the beast right now.
Yeah. Well, I had a question, going back to, somewhat related to the sweat equity and people feeling, I would imagine, feeling very grateful and wanting to continue. Is there any sort of follow-up process to know, like, what they're doing in the community, or any, after
Sure.
after they're in the
Well,
house?
yeah, well, it's interesting because, for the whole year or year and a half that they're doing sweat equity, we're on them on a daily, well, weekly basis, like come in and do your hours and, how's your escrow account going? After you purchase your home, the home is yours and there's no further uh, obligations to Habitat other than paying your mortgage. We are also the lender, so we have a monthly relationship with you. Uh, we know, what you're doing. If you make your payment and everything's good, that's one thing. If you miss 2-3 months, uh, we're going to get in touch with you, find out what's going on, see if it's a job issue, whatever the case may be. But yeah, we have a lot of relationships past closing, and we have a lot of homeowners who they still continue to volunteer
Yeah.
and offer to do, media for us, or they just want to continue to get involved. Um, it's really special because, Justin, the families that we had, one homeowner put it to me one way, is like, my whole life I've heard no, and you guys said yes, and that was a game changer. And so, you know at least the first few years, they always want to keep involved and continue to share the love. And then, life was a way of beating you down and, making you focus. But it's really nice to see the enthusiasm of families that are so appreciative of the opportunity. Again, not a gift, of an opportunity.
Yeah.
But their success is 100% squarely on their shoulders,
Yeah.
not not on anyone
Yeah,
else's.
like I said, I love the model. Well, those are all the kind of the great things that are going on. I think we got to talk a little bit about, how COVID has affected, everything going on. And I'm sure you guys need some additional help as well. So how is, are you guys still building? What's kind of going on with
Yeah,
things?
COVID has, just pretty much like almost every other industry except, you know, Uber Eats and Netflix, has suffered from,
Zoom is doing well.
Zoom is doing very well. But yeah, we have struggled. First and foremost, our families, like I said, our families are low income, and even with an affordable mortgage, a lot of times they're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're a car breakdown or an illness away from financial catastrophe. And a lot of the families, they work in the service industry, they work in schools, they work in industries that have been severely affected. And so we've seen an uptick in delinquencies in our mortgages. We've seen an uptick in people asking for either payment plans or forbearance, because the job situation has really hurt a lot of people. That's one thing we've seen. So also, Habitat works a lot with volunteers. We got volunteers that come and build at Habitat. And we also have one of the ways that we raise money. It's called team builds, which will go to a corporation like, I don't know, Carnival or Univision, and say, listen, you guys make a contribution, $4,000, $5,000, and we will give you guys a house for the day or however long, and you can bring your team of 15. And so you're giving that company an opportunity to bring their employees out for team building, but with a purpose. Well, we haven't been able to sell any of those because we are not using volunteers right now. So that puts a damper on how quickly we can build, because volunteer labor is, very, very useful. So we do have a paid Habitat staff of volunteers, and they're working very, very, very hard to sort of keep up. The pace has slowed down a bit, but we're still cranking away and using more subcontractors, which it's a little more expensive, but there's no stopping us. We're going to keep doing this until the last parcel of land is developed.
Well, that's a perfect segue then. So Miami, obviously, the big developers get the land. so
Correct.
yeah. So I know we spoke a little bit before we started filming that that's one of the biggest challenges you have is finding land, finding affordable land. So I guess,
Correct.
yeah,
So in the past, we have built some really nice large communities. We have a community down in South Dade that's 186 houses. We have another one in South Miami Heights that's 65 houses. Another one that's in the 40s, and that's the dream, to build an entire community. But the vast majority are scattered single lots in Liberty City, in Goulds, in Perrine, all over, one house or two or three. That's sort of where the bread and butter has been. We work very closely with Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County has something called the infill program. And the way the infill program works is the county has a lot of abandoned lots that they got to maintain and ensure. They'll say to somebody like Habitat, listen, we'll give you this parcel of land, but within 2 years, you have to deliver a low income taxpayer. So, and they've got a sales cap so people don't get, abusing the privilege. And so that's been a really, really very helpful, but they're running out of land. It's a finite resource. So we find ourselves going out to the community to buy land, and we're competing with the Shoma Homes and the Lennars, and it's tough to compete with the big boys who can pay 25, 30 grand a parcel. We can't. And so one of the biggest issues that we're facing is availability of land. And I always put out the call, anybody who has land that they're willing to sell or donate. And particularly what's attractive to some folks is, a lot of people own land and it's overgrown, and they start racking up the code enforcement liens. And sometimes they have more liens than the property's worth. And so we will buy it from them and we will worry about getting those liens removed. So, that's an attractive carrot to prospective sellers who, feel that all the proceeds from the sale of their home are going to go to covering their liens. So that's a competitive advantage that we have, is that we will buy your lien-ridden land, and we have ways to get those removed by committing to certain income levels, etc. So it's a good program. But yeah, land is what keeps me up at night, because we're running out of it. And right now it's a concern. In 3 years, it'll be a crisis.
do you look at rehabs, or that doesn't fit the model?
So yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of Habitat affiliates are doing rehabs. We haven't gone that route. We tried it for a little bit. The hard thing about rehabs is they're impossible to budget.
Yeah, you don't
You
know how
think
much
it's
it's
going
going
to
to cost.
be you think it's going to be 50 grand, and then you pull up the floorboards and the entire foundation is rotted, and that just turned into 150 grand.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. We will probably have to move in that direction. But right now, until we completely run out of single family lots, that's what we're going to focus on. I'm a firm believer in do less things really well than spreading yourself too thin and doing a, half, what job on
Couldn't
any
agree
of
more.
those.
Could
Right.
not agree more. Well, I know we're running up on our time. I have just a couple other questions. I was going to ask, do you have an average kind of cost of what one of these homes, how much an average home costs, or?
Yeah, pretty much the average cost is $179,000 for a 3-bedroom. It's a 1.7. Yeah, it ranges. I think the most expensive home we've ever sold was 179, maybe 183.5. But when you do, $183,000 over 30 years at 0% interest, the principal payments are very, very, very affordable. And there are some restrictions about resale of your house. We want to not, you're selling a house at cost, and someone the next day offers them, 40, 50,000 over what they paid, it's very tempting for a family to like think that they cashed out. But then they have to find a house, then they have to get a loan because that zero interest is a one time thing. And not all that glitters is gold. Yes, you maybe made 40 grand on the transaction, but you left $200,000 on the table over 30 years because now you got to find a house and pay market value for it. You got to get a high interest, mortgage, and so we really advise homeowners to not do that. Some did, and I've never met one that has not deeply regretted it. So
Yeah.
what we do now is we put a restriction that if you sell your home within the first 10 years, you have to share in the profits with Habitat on a sliding scale. So first year we get 90, you get 10. Next second year 80-20, and so on and so forth. Some folks is like, wow, that's really beneficial to Habitat, and it's like, no, it really isn't. We're trying to discourage families from wasting the best financial opportunity that they've ever had for just what appears to be a good chunk of money on the front end.
Yeah, Mario, I love it. I love what you guys are doing. I think that's fantastic. So if anyone watching, listening, I'm not sure if people can volunteer right now, but what's a good, kind of call to action, how people can either get involved and be, kind of join what you guys are doing?
Well, that's great, and that's a good. We will be back with volunteers, and there are different ways to help that doesn't require volunteering. We do home visits before selecting a family, and sometimes people can help us do those. There's lots of ways to engage. Advocacy is really important to us, letting our state and local legislators know what we do and how they can be of help. No one hates Habitat. Everybody thinks we do a great job, but between that and having the governmental support, there's sometimes a disconnect. So the best way to find out what you can do is miamihabitat.org. And that'll show you everything that we do and you can find out from volunteering to some of our events, which we hope to start up and running. We've got a big project every February or April, depending on factors, called the Blitz Build, which we do either 8 or 10 houses in a 2-week period. And tons of volunteers, and the families are working at the same time, and it's just the greatest. My favorite time of year for sure. And so we will be having that one in April, and hopefully by then we'll have better protocols. But if we do, or when we do take volunteers back, the safety of our volunteers will be first and foremost. So, we've got some changes to make, where we normally would let 16, 18 volunteers in a house, we may have to cut it to a smaller number so we can keep proper distancing and so on. I gotta tell you, building with a mask on is not a lot of fun, man.
That's not fun.
I tried it, and it's hot enough as is. And so, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say February in Miami might be okay. April, we're getting a little warm.
It's getting a little warm. February is always the preference, but this year we really lost 3 or 4 months in permitting and government processes over COVID. Things were being done online, and it was the best efforts, but it just wasn't productive. So we had to unfortunately delay the February Blitz to April to give us a little time. And also, some of the families that had been selected lost hours or lost jobs. So we're giving everybody a chance to catch up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, Mario, I appreciate your time. Appreciate all the work you do, and we'll talk to you soon, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Justin. Anytime, and thank you for letting me talk about Habitat. It's my favorite thing to do.
Thanks, Mario. Take care.
All right. Bye.